Hops, rhizomes. Should I cut them? When should I cut them? How should I cut them? These are some of the most frequently asked questions that I always hear. Max Raphael here from Hops World, and that's what we're going to learn about today. Hops rhizomes and how to harvest hops rhizomes. Let's do it. So, before we can even think about cutting rhizomes, we have to clear everything above the ground. That means all the old stems we cut right down to the ground, any old plant material, leaves, or strings. Do a good cleaning of the hop yard. And then there's two reasons why we actually cut hops rhizomes. The first reason is to harvest the rhizomes so we can make new plants. The second and more important reason is so the plant doesn't grow laterally, horizontally. We want the plant to grow vertically, both straight down in the ground to get water, and more importantly, straight up in the air, the part that wraps around the strings and eventually produces cones. I would suggest not trying to get rhizomes until at least the third year, maybe the second year, but when the plant's not that big, we're real fragile about trying to pick rhizomes. We'll show you how to do that right here. So we're going to show you here how we dig rhizomes. Start at the outer edge of the plant and dig towards the middle. Gently removing dirt. As you can see, we're shaking the dirt loose, which reveals the rhizomes. A rhizome is a type of root that actually has sprouts. Very soon, we cut these and plant them. They will create their own plant. If we don't cut them, they will start sprouting here about 3 feet from the center of the plant or the crown, which we really don't want. We can cut them off and make a bunch of small plants. So my friends, what we have here is a rhizome that we dug up. It's coming from the crown of the plant. You see these rhizomes start occurring mostly after the second and third year. This is the third year of our centennial, and it's just barely starting to send some shoots out of the ground. I can just see the very tips. Well, I actually decided to uncover this whole plant, and boy was I surprised. And boy was it some work. Now I would never uncover a plant like this normally to cut rhizomes. I really uncovered it just so I could show it and see the growth. This is just starting the third year, folks. This is supposed to be the year that the plant is actually 100%, and you can see underground it's 150%. These horizontal roots with the white sprouts are the rhizomes. And the rhizomes actually have these sprouts. That is a part of the plant that pops out of the ground shortly and actually turns slightly purple as it pops up and then green. And if we zoom in here, we can see these small, fine micro roots which are actually attached to the rhizomes. It's really important to keep them roots attached to the rhizomes right now so that when we transplant them, they will be able to absorb water and nutrients. So realize that right now your rhizome is like a little water reservoir, and the little fine roots are needed to fill the reservoir. The little white sprouts shown here are actually the sprouts that will come up and leave the surface. And once they leave the surface, they turn green like here in the picture. And although we typically do not cut our plants once they're sprouted above the ground, our plants this year really surprised us. As you can see, we had rhizomes that were over 3 feet long. So here's what we did in the next video. We actually cut the plants even though they were sprouted. But that's okay because the plants only have to be pretty one day a year on harvest day. As you can see, we have a crown of Yakima gold looking real pretty. But you see these side shoots, rhizomes that have taken off, have grown away from the crown. And in reality, they're not going to help the situation when we try to train the vines onto the strings. We have all these shoots, even some coming out of the area where it's growing. All these extra shoots on the side. These crowns have gotten, especially this glacier here, is out of control. The Yakima gold looks good, but needs to be trimmed. So here we're going to show you how to control your crowns, which is very important, especially when you have different varieties of plants close to each other. Even in plants with pots, this is a good idea to cut the edges, because your roots are going to be close to the side of the pot where the heat is going to literally cook them. So here we go. Okay, we're going to start concentrating on this Yakima gold crown. Very important that people don't realize is to clean your tools. We clean our cutters or shears with alcohol between each plant so we don't spread disease. Now we're going to do the same with our shovel. You cut a root that has some kind of fungus, downy mildew, powdery mildew, or a myriad of other funguses, and then you go to cut the next plant. You know what you're doing. You're spreading the fungus. So between each plant, we make sure we put alcohol on the blade of our shovel. So the object here is to cut away these rhizomes and shoots that are away from the crown and keep the crown very small so that the plant grows upward and not outward. It's proven by cutting these rhizomes and shoots, the roots, main taproot, will actually grow further down quicker. So you basically cut with the shovel to cut any roots or rhizomes. Cut in a circle completely around the plant. So when we cut the rhizomes, we use a narrow, pointy shovel, and we actually sharpen the shovel on a grinding stone, believe it or not. And we go completely around the plant, straight down. We go at least 8 or 10 inches. You don't really have to go any further because the rhizomes really run in the shallow ground horizontally. Now you can see our Pacific gem was really a mess here and really super overgrown. It would have had at least 100 shoots if we had left it go crazy. And we really don't want that. We want only 4 to 6 spines growing up the strings. This will have 2 strings when we're done. And then when we're done, look how pretty. All the energy will be concentrated going straight up the plant. So once we're done, the rhizomes sure don't go to waste. We gather them up and start cleaning them up for transplanting. This would be one rhizome here. I would probably cut off this little extra piece. Nice size rhizome. In this case, if we cut each one of these that has a sprout, that would turn into a new plant if we planted them. So then we just go about and cleaning up all the roots and the rhizomes. We try to get at least 2 nodes minimal on each rhizome with some of the fine net roots. And when we're done, we're ready to go planting. Many large farms in the world actually cut their rhizomes using a tractor and a disc running down the rows. And thanks to my friend George for letting me use this video. Okay, so there you have it, folks. Time to go propagating. Literally, some plants, depending on their variety, can have up to 100 rhizomes. Okay, I don't really promote cutting a plant, getting 100 rhizomes off it, especially if it's only in the second or third year. But I did have one plant, Canadian red vine. It was a fourth year. It literally had 15-foot long rhizomes that were only an inch or so under the ground, running like bamboo, literally. When I pulled that plant out, I'm scared that I'm still gonna have some Canadian red vine plants popping up somewhere on the other side of our hop yard. But regardless, one thing to remember with the rhizomes is that it's not so important the diameter of the rhizome, although a young plant will have thinner rhizomes, of course, and further from the crown, they do get thinner. But variety specific, rhizomes are way different in thickness. I literally had one, it was a Neo Mexicano, that was a 3-inch diameter rhizome, 3-inch. But I've had plenty way thicker than my thumb, an inch thick. I'm going to show you these here. We'll zoom in. And these are real thin cascade rhizomes, but they're perfect condition. So it's important when you cut rhizomes, or if you get rhizomes from somewhere, if you buy rhizomes, that they look kind of yellowish, real lighter colored. You definitely want at least 2 of the sprouts. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 sprouts on it. And you want to look at the ends and make sure that they're in solid and there's no darkness in the middle. Darkness in the middle is a sign of problems. Okay? It's possible part of your plant might have some darkness on one part, but I wouldn't use them rhizomes if you cut your own. And you want to have at least some of these little hairs, which are really fine roots. That's really important too. The other thing is, when you have a rhizome, you want to make sure it's nice and firm. Once it starts getting spongy, you blow it. It's no good. Now, how we keep the rhizomes till we plant them. It's pretty simple. You get a plastic bag, you mark it, what you have here, 3 cascade rhizomes. You stick them in the plastic bag, you leave the plastic bag open, and you put it in the door of the refrigerator. Okay, I've lost rhizomes because I had them way deep into the refrigerator and they froze. And you want to make sure that the temperature stays above 32 degrees, 40 degrees, 36, the typical temperature of refrigerator. Never put these in the freezer. They will get their own little bit of moisture from the bag. Okay, so you really don't have to. If you want to, you could maybe wrap them in a little damp paper towel, but barely damp. I've done that, but I've bought literally tens of thousands of rhizomes. They've never come moist. They've never come wrapped in anything but a little bit of plastic, wide open and breathing and cold. And that's all you have to do, okay, folks? They will stay 2 to 3 months. I suggest within a month to plant them, for sure. Get them in the ground if you can the same day. Get them in a pot, get them in the ground, put them out in the sun on sunny days, bring them in on cold nights. That's another thing. We'll have a tip on how to plant your rhizomes shortly. Thanks for being here, folks. I hope you like our tip. If you have any comments, please comment below. Any suggestion on other tips, any ideas, I appreciate it. If you liked our tip, put a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends. I appreciate it. Cheers to life.